What is the darkest piece of lottery history you know of? Jack Whittaker, a West Virginia native, is the poster boy for the dangers of a lump sum award. In 2002, Mr. Whittaker, who was 55 years old at the time, won what was, also at the time, the largest single award jackpot in U.S. history. $315 million. At the time, he planned to live as if nothing had changed, or so he said. He was remarkably modest and decent before the jackpot, and his ship sure came in, right? Wrong. Mr. Whittaker became the subject of a number of personal challenges, escalating into personal tragedies, complicated by a number of legal troubles. Whittaker wasn't a typical lottery winner either. His net worth at the time of his winnings was in excess of $15 million, owing to his ownership of a successful contracting firm in West Virginia. His claim to want to live as if nothing had changed actually seemed plausible. He should have been well equipped for wealth. He was already quite wealthy, after all. By all accounts, he was somewhat modest, low profile, generous and good-natured. He should have coasted off into the sunset. Yeah. Not exactly. Whittaker took the all-cash option, $170 million, instead of the annuity option, and took possession of $114 million in cash after $56 million in taxes. After that, things went south. Whittaker quickly became the subject of a number of financial stalkers, who would lurk at his regular breakfast hideout and accost him with suggestions for how to spend his money. They were unemployed. No, an interview tomorrow morning wasn't good enough. They needed cash now. Perhaps they had a surefire business plan. Their daughter had cancer. A niece needed dialysis. Needless to say, Whittaker stopped going to his breakfast spot. Eventually, they began ringing his doorbell. Sometimes in the early morning. Before long, he was paying off-duty deputies to protect his family. He was accused of being heartless, cold, stingy. Letters poured in. Children with cancer, diabetes, MS, you name it. He hired 3 people to sort the mail because of the con man who flooded it. Brenda, the clerk who had sold Whittaker the ticket, was also a victim of collateral damage. Whittaker had written her a check for $44,000 and bought her house, but she was by no means a millionaire. Rumors that the state routinely paid the clerk who had sold the ticket 10% of the jackpot winnings hounded her. She was followed home from work. Threatened. Assaulted. Whittaker's car was broken into twice, by trusted acquaintances who watched him leave large amounts of cash in it. $500,000 and $200,000 were stolen in 2 separate instances. The thieves spiked Whittaker's drink with prescription meds in the first instance. The second incident was the handiwork of his granddaughter's friends, who had been probing the girl for details on Whittaker's cash for weeks. Even Whittaker's good faith generosity was questioned. When he offered $10,000 to improve the city's water park so that it was more handicap accessible, locals complained that he spent more money at the Gentlemen's Club. He eventually had given away $14 million to charity through a foundation he set up for the purpose. This is, of course, what you are supposed to do. Set up a foundation and be careful about your charity giving. It made no difference in the end. To top it all off, Whittaker had been accused of ruining a number of marriages. His money made other men look inferior, they said, wherever he went in the small West Virginia town he called home. Resentment grew quickly and festered. Whittaker paid 4 settlements related to this sort of claim. His family and their immediate circle were quickly the victims of odds-defying numbers of ODs, emergency room visits and even fatalities. His 18-year-old granddaughter, who Whittaker had been giving a $2,100 weekly allowance, was found dead after having been missing for several weeks. Her death was apparently from an OD, but Whittaker suspected foul play. Her body had been wrapped in a tarp and hidden behind a rusted-out van. Her 17-year-old boyfriend had expired 3 months earlier in Whittaker's vacation house, also from an OD. Some of his friends had robbed the house after his odd, stepping over his body to make their escape and then returning for more before stepping over his body again to leave. His parents sued for wrongful death, claiming that Whittaker's loose purse strings contributed to their son's death. Amazingly, juries are prone to award damages in cases such as these. Whittaker settled. Again. Even before the deaths, the local and state police had taken a special interest in Whittaker after his newfound fame. He was arrested for minor offenses many times after his winnings, despite having had a nearly spotless record before the award. Whittaker's high profile couldn't have helped him much in this regard. In 18 months, Whittaker had been cited for over 250 violations ranging from broken tail lights on every one of his 5 new cars, to improper display of renewal stickers. A lawsuit charging various police organizations with harassment went nowhere and Whittaker was hit with court costs instead. Whittaker's wife filed for divorce, and in the process froze a number of his assets and the accounts of his operating companies. Caesars in Atlantic City sued him for $1.5 million to cover bounced checks, caused by the asset freeze. Today Whittaker is badly in debt, and bankruptcy looms large in his future. But, hey, that's just one example, right? Wrong. Nearly 1/3 of multi-million-dollar jackpot winners eventually declare bankruptcy. Some end up worse. Believe it or not, your biggest enemy if you suddenly become possessed of large sums of money is you. At least you will have the consolation of meeting your fate by your own hand. But if you can't manage it on your own, don't worry. There are any number of willing participants ready to help you start your vicious downward spiral for you. Mind you, many of these will be friends, friendly neighbors, or family. Often, they won't even have evil intentions. But, as I'm sure you know, that makes little difference in the end. Most aren't evil. Most aren't malicious. Some are. None are good for you.